Welcome back. Now, the ripple effect of rising insecurity, particularly in the country's northern region, is something that will linger for many years. Gunmen recently struck again, seizing students of Greenfield University, a private school located in Kaduna State. Recall that the whereabouts of the remaining 29 students now of Federal College of Forestry Mechanization, AFACA, in the same Kaduna State is still unknown. In the wake of these violent attacks on academic institutions, some state governments have had to take the hard decision of either shutting down some schools in volatile areas or relocating the students to other schools. No doubt this disruption cast a shadow on the plans of the students who desire to acquire formal education. Now, according to a group, Policy House International, over 800 students were kidnapped within 3 months in the northern part of the country this year. The group has also raised concerns over the development, saying it might drive the number of out-of-school children in the country up from 10.5 million to 13 million by the end of this year. To give us a further breakdown of this report, I'm now being joined on the program by Taiwo Akerele, who is the Executive Director of the Incentive-Based Program of the Policy House International. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Mr. Akerele. Let me start by asking you about your projection that the number of out-of-school children could go up to over 13 million based on the attacks we are seeing. Could you expatiate more on that?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Deji. The situation in some parts of the north with respect to education is deteriorating. And between December and April, which we extrapolated to be a quarter of the year, almost 800 students have been kidnapped, abducted, and most of them are still in the abductors' den as we speak. So it's a very worrisome development, especially within the backdrop of the UNICEF report 2019-2020 that said there are 10.5 million out-of-school children in Nigeria already. And they went further to state that 1 out of every 5 persons that is out of school in the world is a Nigerian. In other words, if there are 50 million out of school children in the world, 10.5 of them are in Nigeria. And in the wake of the rising spate of attacks in schools and the increasing adoption and kidnapping of students, this is most likely to rise. Let me give you additional statistics and data. In 2019-2020, the UNICEF reported that 802 schools were shut down between Yobe, Adamawa, and Borno. And when you calculate, and the average, we're just being conservative, 500 pupils in a school, that gives you about 401,000 students that have been out of school within those three states as a result of the shutdown of the 802
and up till this,
up till this
time, some of those schools have not been reopened.
Because they've been destroyed. Some of them were burnt down. They are in a serious state of disrepair, and completely the teachers are not willing to come back to school because of the lack of security. And that is why we started gathering our data to say, okay, based on the UNICEF report, let us have the Nigerian response. So we took it upon ourselves to start analyzing data on the state of education in the north, and it was very alarming, Deji, to say the least, that within 3 months, almost 794 students have been abducted. And this has serious ripple effect because in Niger State, in 4 local governments, the government was forced to shut down all the schools, all the boarding schools in 4 local governments in Niger State. In Zamfara, the same thing happened. All the schools along 4 that borders about 4 states, including Kaduna, Katsina, and others, were also shut down. So when you look at the existing conditions in those states, and you now compare it with the policy response of the government, so it means that we are going downward rather than improving the quality of education.
Now, most of the attacks we have seen are usually targeted at primary schools, secondary.
Sorry?
I mean, most of the attacks we have seen are usually, especially in the past, were targeted at primary schools and nursery schools, and secondary schools. Yes. But in recent times, we've seen these bandits now move on to tertiary institutions like the Federal College of Education, Federal College of Forestry
and Mechanization.
And then we have the latest one now, the Greenville University.
The Greenfield
How
University
concerning is that
yes.
for a group, your group?
So for us, it's a worrisome trend, because when you look at what happened in Chibok about close to 7 years ago now, it was the focus was on girls. But right now, they've not only shifted to males, but they have also shifted to tertiary institutions. In other words, there's a calculated attempt to completely destroy the educational system in the North from primary to tertiary level. And this is very worrisome, because against the backdrop of the fact that these are areas that are already described as educationally disadvantaged states in Nigeria. In other words, if this trend continues, the gap between the North and South in terms of education and quality of education and access will continue to be
why do you think, why do you think schools have been targeted?
Yes, because you see, when you look at the philosophy of the terrorists, their philosophy is Western education is forbidden. So any semblance of formal education anywhere that they have strength, they try to bring them, they try to bring those institutions down. And not that the Nigerian government is not responding, but apparently the response is not good enough. And this is very worrisome, because Nigeria, with our population, with our economy, with our capacity, with our democracy, we are not supposed to be on the list of those of the countries that should be categorized as having one of the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. And we are bringing out this data for Nigerian government to see and respond adequately and come up with policy action that can stem the tide. We further went to proffer solution, because this is not about grandstanding. It's about how does Nigerian government resolve this issue of children being discouraged from having access to education. Because in the final analysis, it is the quality of life of the future of our people that will be affected. And hence, we are presenting this data to the Nigerian government to say, what are we doing? I wish to recognize and acknowledge the fact that the alternate school program was launched earlier this year by the president. Then, it's about a few days ago, the Safe School Initiative was also revamped by the Nigerian Governors Forum and other stakeholders. These are policy measures, but how far-reaching are these measures going to impact on the abduction and the culture of abduction and kidnapping that has started, and the trend is getting wider and wider and deepening. And we also want to state that there are so many other factors responsible for out of school. There are social-cultural factors, there are infrastructural issues, there are capacity issues, particularly with area of teacher recruitment, teacher capability, and of course retention. Then of course there are also school feeding initiatives that has also been brought up. So all these factors, but the most important of all is the security factor, which is not under the control of the governors. So we've been trying to engage in Nigerian Governors Forum, trying to engage critical stakeholders in the educational ecosystem to see what are the sustainable solutions that can be found. But for now, the challenge we have now, the challenge we have in our hand is the rising numbers of the number of people, number of students who are who have been abducted, number of schools that have been shut down. It has serious implication on the economy. It has serious implication on parents' encouragement. It has serious implication on adolescent culture. It has serious implication on even drugs and crime. Because when students are not engaged, when young people are not engaged, you can imagine the ripple effect on the economy and the society. So we are very worried, and this is a wake-up call to the Nigerian government and all the stakeholders in education that this is an embarrassment to the country.
It is.
And it is even much more a security challenge than what we presently confront, because when these guys are not in school, what are they learning and who is teaching them? Formally or informally? Formally, fine, but informally, how are we tracking what is being taught them? Is it normal education or is it ideological education? What type of orientation are being given to those who are not in school? 10.5 million is already an issue. It's already a challenge in our hands. Then, with the recent trend in the last quarter alone, it means that by December, if this trend is not curtailed, by December we'll be having additional 30% growth in the number of students.
And by the way, that 10.5 million is actually the official figure, because
that's UNICEF data.
There is also another projection out there that is not official, that the number may actually be 13 million at the moment. And so If the number is 13 million at the moment, then you can imagine if you factor in your own projection, it's a very big problem. But Taiwo Akerele, thank you very much for joining us on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Deji.
Well, I've been speaking with Taiwo Akerele, who is the Executive Director of the Incentive-Based Program of the Policy House International. We'll take a short break now and we'll be right back.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
The president must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.